there's one thing that I love about language in general, it's etymology, or the history of words themselves. But have you ever traveled to another country and wondered, where did this country get its name from? And so today we're gonna break down, where did all of the Spanish-speaking countries get their names? Before we even get into the countries themselves, what I want to start with is America itself. Whether you believe America is 2 continents or 1, depending on if you're from the United States or not, basically. I've always wanted to know, where did America get its name? Well, interestingly enough, the word America actually comes from an Italian guy named Amerigo Vespucci. Amerigo Vespucci, who played a key role in discovering, now I'm saying discovering in a very loose way. Now, when the original conquistadors from Italy and Spain took off to find India, they ended up landing, of course, in the Americas. And when they realized that, our guy Amerigo Vespucci wrote a very long-winded letter back to Europe, basically being like, hey, this is actually not India, what the heck? Of course, being one of the first Europeans to recognize that America is not India. Yay, Amerigo Vespucci! Now, a few years later, in 1501, some guy named Martin Waldseemüller, a German cartographer, created the first known world map to label America as America, using the Latinized form of Vespucci's name, Americus Vespucius. Initially, America only referred to just South America, but eventually became the name of both the American continents. Waldseemüller justified this choice by believing that our boy Amerigo Vespucci deserved some clout for his discovery that America was not India. So there you go, that's how America got its name. Now let's just jump right into it. Where did the 21 Spanish-speaking countries get their name? Starting out with number 1, Argentina. Argentina is of course a beautiful country located along the southern cone of South America, with of course a huge range of diverse natural landscapes, from mountains to glaciers to beaches to pretty much anything that you could look for. Argentina was established as an independent nation in 1816 and got its name from a pretty interesting reason. Now, Argentina actually got its name based in the Latin word for silver. However, Argentina being named after silver comes from a pretty interesting history. When the European explorers came to Argentina, they heard from the natives that basically Argentina was filled with silver. These stories led to the naming of the Rio de la Plata, or the River of the Silver. There was also a myth of the Sierra de la Plata, or the Mountain of Silver, which captured and fueled the imagination of our lovely European settlers. Now, over time, of course, this name gained popularity, and following the independence from Spain, the region cycled through various designations, including the United Provinces of the Rio de la Plata, the Argentinian Confederation, before officially adopting the name República de Argentina in 1816. So to this day, Argentina is of course named after silver. Pretty cool. Which leads me to number 2, Bolivia. Bolivia is a country located, of course, also in South America, and is known for its deep indigenous influences and a really interesting combination between Aymara, Quechua, and Spanish roots. Bolivia actually gets its name after some guy. Well, not just some guy named Simón Bolívar, which if you know a little bit about South American independence history, you've probably heard this name before. Simón Bolívar is a Venezuelan liberator who played a central role in freeing South American nations, among them Venezuela, Colombia, Ecuador, Peru, and Bolivia itself, from Spanish colonial rule. This makes Bolivia one of the few countries in the world that's actually named after a person, Simón Bolívar. Before its independence, this territory known as Bolivia was also referred to as Alto Peru, or Upper Peru, because, well, these were regions that didn't really exist as separate countries yet. So basically Bolivia was part of Old Peru. Then eventually in 1825, when it got independence, a Congress of leaders decided that the country should be named Bolivia, and it's like that to this day. The next country on my list, number 3, is of course Chile. Now, Chile is known for so many different things, including the fact that it is the longest country in the world. Did you know that Chile in length is the same as the width of the United States? And because of its length, Chile is known to have a huge biodiversity of different landscapes across the country, including deserts, beaches, snow, glaciers, pretty much whatever you could look for, you can find in Chile. Now, there's actually a couple of different theories as to how Chile got its name Chile, starting out with the Mapuche Mapuche theory, some people believed that Chile comes from the Mapuche word Chile, which refers to where the land ends or where the world ends or the deepest point on earth. Now, some people also argue that this name Chile is derived from Aymara language, another indigenous language of South America, which believe that Chile also comes from the word Chile, but in this case referring to cold or snow, which of course can also be found in the south of Chile. My favorite theory about how Chile got its name is actually after, what do you know? Birds, pájaros. Now, if you've ever been to Chile, you know that Chile is filled with birds, okay? No matter where you go, you're gonna hear the wherever you go. However, there are a couple specific birds that are known to make a pretty unique sound like this. Chile, Chile, Chile. Specifically the southern lapwing and the Chilean mockingbird, or the tero and the tenca birds. Some people believe that Chile was named after the sound of these birds. Some people disagree with this theory, but I'm gonna believe it because it is definitely my favorite. Which leads me to my next country, number 4, Colombia. Colombia, officially named as the Republic of Colombia in 1886, is known of course for its vibrant, diverse natural landscapes, beautiful Caribbean beaches, amazing dancing, music, culture, everything. Colombia is another country that is a tribute to some guy, aka Christopher Columbus or Cristóbal Colón. And if you don't know who Cristóbal Colón is, please go open a history book and just look for the year 1492. Combining the word Colón with the Latin suffix of ia, Colombia, paid a tribute to the land of Columbus. Now, Colombia actually used to belong to a different territory, well, the same but different, called La Gran Colombia, which was a combo deal of Ecuador, Colombia, Venezuela, and of course, Panama. These 4 countries made up La Gran Colombia, which was a short-lived political entity. Now, after the band of La Gran Colombia decided to break up and call it a day, this region then became called the Republic of New Granada. Like, why are we going through all these different names? Colombia is having an identity crisis. And then in 1886, Colombia officially became La República de Colombia. The next country on my list is Costa Rica, a beautiful Central American country known for its incredible beaches, chill vibes, and amazing jungles. Now, Costa Rica is of course a huge tourist destination across people from all around the globe, but do you know where it got its name from? Well, Costa Rica actually means rich coast, and funny enough, when the original conquistadors made their way to Costa Rica, they saw the indigenous people adorned in gold, and they thought these people are rich. Now, when they saw these people adorned in gold and said, hey, they're pretty rich, well, this is the rich coast, La Costa Rica. Funny enough, Costa Rica was actually not very abundant in natural resources like gold. So during the colonial period, Costa Rica was pretty low-key. It remained a modest and somewhat small region of these new territories owned by the Spanish, but in 1821, Costa Rica briefly joined the Mexican Empire and was then kind of under the Federal Republic of Central America. And then in 1838, Costa Rica officially became a sovereign nation, maintaining its name that it had before from basically good press. The next country on my list is number 6, Cuba. Cuba is one of my favorite countries that I have visited in Latin America and is of course one of the most beautiful. I mean, between its amazing natural landscape of Caribbean crystal blue beaches combined with interesting colonial architecture and nowadays some pretty cool 1950s cars, Cuba is definitely a country worth learning about. Now, something really cool about Cuba is that its name is actually derived from an indigenous language, and it was kept to this day. The Taíno people originally gave Cuba its name, which originally comes from the word Cubao or Coabana, which is kind of believed to mean a great land or a fertile place. Now, when the Spaniards first arrived to Cuba in 1492, the land was already being called Cuba, and so they basically just adopted this name and kept it. And so when Cuba finally became an independent nation in 1902, can you believe it? 1902, Cuba became independent from Spain. They kept their name Cuba and called it a day. Which brings me to the next beautiful Caribbean country on my list, República Dominicana. Now, República Dominicana became an independent nation in 1844, and this country is of course known for so many things, including their amazing dances like bachata and merengue, their amazing Caribbean beaches, fun people, and overall great vibe. Something important to note about República Dominicana, if you did not know, is that it is attached to another country, Haiti, like little twins right next to each other. República República Dominicana was actually named after the Saint Dominic. It was given a religious name after Santo Domingo, which was the original capital of the region. This region was founded in 1496 by Bartholomew Columbus, Columbus's brother, and then they decided to start calling the whole region Santo Domingo. This was actually the first significant European settlement in the Americas, marking this territory as being very, very important to the history of Latin America. But during the colonial era, this region was actually referred to as Hispaniola rather than República Dominicana. However, in 1844, when República Dominicana actually got its independence from Haiti, they decided to name themselves República Dominicana, a tribute to its capital and its origins. Next on our list, number 8, Ecuador. Ecuador, established as an independent nation all the way in 1830, around the same time that all of these countries were saying, hey, bye-bye Spain. Ecuador is a beautiful country with so many unique things, such as, of course, the Galapagos Islands, an incredible biodiversity between mountains, Andes, and of course, their amazing food. Ecuador is a pretty cool place to go. Now, if you speak Spanish, you might have been able to conclude where Ecuador got its name from, but Ecuador is actually the Spanish name for the equator, making Ecuador the only country named after a geographical phenomenon. When Ecuador decided to become an independent country in 1830, they said, hey, guess what? We're on the equator and we're going to be called that. Ecuador. Next country on my list, number 9, El Salvador. Again, if you speak Spanish, you would probably know that this word means the savior. But El Salvador was established as an independent country in 1841, and this country is of course known for its beautiful volcanoes, strong national identity, and amazing, amazing food. Go get some Salvadorian food if you have not already. Please. Thank you. Now, El Salvador was actually named El Salvador for the Savior, aka referring to our boy Jesucristo, Jesus Christ. This name originally only applied to the city of San Salvador, which was founded in 1524 by Spanish conquistador Pedro de Alvarado. The border territory was given a super long name. Providencia de nuestro Señor Jesucristo El Salvador del Mundo. Imagine that your country has a name that long. Province of our Lord Jesus Christ, the Savior of the world. That would be a pretty amazing name. However, the people got a little bit tired of saying all of that, and they decided to shorten it to El Salvador. Now, taking a break from the Americas, the next country on my list is Equatorial Guinea, or Guinea Equatorial. And something you may not have known about this country is that it is the only country in Africa that is an official Spanish-speaking country. Maybe you didn't know that there was an official Spanish-speaking country in Africa, but there is, and its name is Guinea Equatorial. Now, Guinea Equatorial is also the youngest country on our list, becoming independent in 1968. This country is located on the central coast of Africa and is known for its oil wealth, its diversity, and of course, it uniquely being the only Spanish-speaking country in Africa. The first Europeans to arrive to this region were the Portuguese in the 15th century, but the region was later taken by Spain in 1778. This region was originally known as Spanish Guinea, but when Guinea Equatorial became independent in 1968, they decided to change it to Equatorial Guinea, or Guinea Equatorial. And if you don't know too much about this country, it has a really interesting history, and they speak a pretty unique Spanish, which combines their traditional African roots with the actual Spain Spanish accent. I definitely recommend you go learn more about this place. This leads me to the next country on my list, number 11, Guatemala. Now, Guatemala was established as an independent country in 1839 and is now known as an amazing destination to see some pretty cool volcanoes and indigenous history. This country is rich in Mayan heritage, which leads me to how it got its name in the first place. The word Guatemala is actually believed to derive from the indigenous Nahuatl word Guatemalan, which means the place of many trees. This name was likely introduced by the native-speaking allies of the Spaniards that took over the region at the time, and the term likely referred to the forested areas around the ancient Quiché capital of Cuamarcash, or the border mountains of terrain of the highlands. The Spanish adopted the name during their colonization of the region and established the Captaincy General of Guatemala, again transforming this original indigenous word into a little bit more palatable for the Spanish tongue. Guatemala became independent in 1821, separating themselves both from the Spanish and the Mexican Empire, and they became fully sovereign in 1839, keeping their name Guatemala. Which leads me to the next Central American country on my list, Honduras. Honduras, located in Central America, of course, and established as an independent region in 1839, is known as well for its Mayan ruins, of course beautiful landscapes, and interesting culture. Now the name Honduras actually does not come from indigenous language, it does come from the Spanish, from the word hondura, which means depth or deep waters, which referred to the really deep coastal waters that surrounded Honduras. According to the popular legend, when Christopher Columbus arrived to the coast during his fourth voyage in 1502, he said to have thanked God for escaping the treacherous depths, allegedly saying, "Gracias a Dios que hemos salido de estas Honduras." Thank God we have escaped these depths. Basically, Christopher Columbus said, damn, those are some deep waters. This country is gonna be named Honduras. This name is actually pretty beautiful in my opinion, as it reflects the really deep, amazing natural resources that Honduras has. And then in 1838, it finally became its own country, Honduras. Now the next country on our list is of course also pretty iconic when it comes to the history of its name, Mexico. Now Mexico was established as an independent nation in 1821, but the country today is known for so many things, including of course its amazing gastronomy, I love you tacos, and also of course its amazing blend of indigenous roots with new Spanish colonization. Now the word Mexico actually derives from the Nahuatl word Mexico, which was established by the founders of the Aztec Empire. This word was actually used to describe their capital and is now actually present day Mexico City. Now when the Spanish originally arrived to Mexico in 1521, they weren't really fond of the way that they pronounced this as Mexico. So they changed that original j sound to the Spanish X, making it Mexico, honoring a little bit its indigenous roots, but also making it again more palatable for the Spanish. The next country on my list is number 14, Nicaragua. Now Nicaragua was also established as an independent nation in 1838. It is located in Central America, and like its neighbors, it is a beautiful, amazing country filled with indigenous history, amazing beaches, and crystal clear water. Now the name Nicaragua is most likely believed to be a combination of the name of an indigenous chief Nicaragua and the Spanish word agua. Nicaragua and agua, Nicaragua. When Spanish explorers led by Gil González Dávila arrived in the region in the late 1500s, they encountered a powerful local leader ruling near Lake Nicaragua. Impressed by the abundance of water in the area, home to two major lakes and many rivers, they thought to have coined the name Nicaragua to signify Nicaragua's land of water. Others suggest that the word Nicaragua comes from a fully indigenous term, but whatever you want to believe, Nicaragua is actually full of water. When of course Nicaragua became independent from Spain in 1821, they then of course, like their brothers, became part of the Federal Republic of Central America, and then in 1838 became Nicaragua. Next on our list is number 15, Panama. Panama was actually not established as an independent nation until 1903, another one of our younger countries. It is on the southern tip of Central America, of course known worldwide for the Panama Canal, their beautiful Panama City, and their really awesome biodiversity. Now, many believe that the word Panama comes from an indigenous word for the word of abundance of fish or abundance of butterflies. Now, we don't know the exact word that this is derived from, but we know that it sounds a lot like Panama. This interpretation definitely aligns with early Spanish accounts, noting the great biodiversity and abundance of fish and butterflies in the region of Panama. Now, after gaining independence from Spain in 1821, Panama decided to join La Gran Colombia, but in 1903, noticing the really important territory being right along the Panama Canal, and amid efforts to make this canal in the early 1900s, Panama decided to honor its cultural roots and name themselves Panama. Next on our list is number 16, Paraguay. Now, Paraguay was established as an independent region in 1811 and is located in South America. Paraguay is known for its rich natural landscapes, of course, interesting combination between indigenous cultures and Spanish rule, and its huge abundance of the Guarani language. Now, because of this abundance of Guarani, many believe that the word Paraguay actually comes from Guarani. Para meaning water, gua referring to belonging to, and y referring to river. So water belonging to the river. This etymology likely refers to the Paraguay River, which connects most of the country to El Río de la Plata. Remember that one? Now, the Spanish actually ended up adopting this indigenous name in the 16th century, keeping Paraguay as Paraguay, and after gaining their independence from Spain in 1811, they decided to keep their indigenous rooted name. To this day, Guarani is actually still considered and widely adopted as the major language of Paraguay. Paraguay alongside Spanish, making it one of the only countries of Latin America where indigenous language is also considered official. Good on you, Paraguay. Next on my list is the iconic, we've heard about her all day, Peru. Now, Peru was established as an independent territory in 1821, and Peru nowadays is known as one of the most iconic tourist destinations in the world. Of course, between Machu Picchu, their interesting Incan and indigenous culture that takes place there, their world-famous gastronomy, and overall rich natural landscapes, Peru is a pretty interesting place to go. Now, the word Peru is thought to originate from the word Viru, which was the name of a local ruler that was in charge of the southern part of modern-day Panama in the early 1500s. Now, when Spanish explorers, particularly Vasco Núñez de Balboa, arrived in the region around 1513, they heard the name Peru associated with the land of the south. Now, when they started pushing more into this region, they had mistakenly named the whole area Peru, even though Peru wasn't actually really in charge of the actual region of Peru at the time. Now, again, we know how the Spanish are, they're changing indigenous words to their own words. Eventually, Peru became Peru to make it a little bit easier for them to say. And then in 1821, when Peru became their own country, they decided to stick to the name Peru after that guy, Peru, which wasn't even really in charge of Peru at the time. Now, the next country on my list is pretty unique because some people consider it a country, some people consider it a territory, but in my mind, it's significant enough that we need to talk about it. Puerto Rico. Now, Puerto Rico is still officially a territory of the United States, but it is located in the Caribbean and is its own island. Puerto Rico, besides Bad Bunny, is known for many things, including its amazing music, Afro-Caribbean culture, as well as its amazing food. Now, similar to Cuba, Puerto Rico was also originally inhabited by the Taino people, who called it Boriquen or Boriquen. And now, if you speak Spanish, you'll see why this is really interesting in a second. This word Boriquen means land of the valiant lord, or land of the noble people, which is why to this day we call people from Puerto Rico Boricuas, Boriquen Boricuas. If you are from Puerto Rico, you are Boricua, or the land of the valiant people. Pretty cool, right? However, when our boy Cristóbal Colón came to the region in 1493, he claimed it for Spain, of course, and named it San Juan Bautista in honor of St. John the Baptist. Yay, religion! But Puerto Rico basically means rich port, as this was a really important port in the trade that was going on between America and Europe at the time. Now, following the Spanish-American War, Puerto Rico became U.S. territory in 1898 and remains so to this day. However, they still have maintained their name of Puerto Rico and, of course, Boricua after the Spanish reign of the territory. Now, speaking of our famous Spaniards, next we need to talk about the original Spanish-speaking country itself, Spain. And although Spain is not located in Latin America, obviously we need to talk about it because this is the history of Spanish-speaking countries. Now, Spain was established as its own kingdom all the way back in 1479. Spain is an old country. Spain is, of course, known for so many things between its invention of the Spanish language, its presence all over Latin America, amazing food, flamenco, toros, whatever you think of when you think of Spain, it's probably something pretty cool. Now, the word Spain actually comes from the Latin word Hispania, which Romans basically used to refer to the entire Iberian Peninsula. Now, where did the word Hispania come from? This is well debated across many people. Some people believe this comes from Hispania or Hispaniam, which is believed to be the land of hyraxes, which is like this small mammal that I guess was found a lot in Spain. Some also believe that this has Basque or Iberian roots coming from Basco language, but despite these roots, the Romans called this Hispania. Now, Hispania, after time, bada bing bada boom, became España. To this day, Spain remains as España and is one of the most iconic countries when it comes to world history in the world. Now, heading back to Latin America, next we're going to talk about Uruguay, our country number 20. Now, Uruguay was established as an independent nation in 1828. Uruguay is known for so many different things, including its really strong blend between indigenous and European roots, their amazing food, asados, and of course, their love of mate. Now, most people actually believe that the word Uruguay comes also from Guarani language, similar to Paraguay, Uruguay. Now, we know now that Ua means coming from and Ai means either river or water, but Uru actually maybe refers to a bird that is native to Uruguay, meaning that the word Uruguay comes from the river of the Uru bird or the water of the Uru bird. Now, this Uruguay River was first recorded by European settlers in the early 16th century, and they decided to, again, adopt the indigenous name of Uruguay. After a long struggle for autonomy, however, in 1828, Uruguay became its own country under the Treaty of Montevideo, which was actually brokered with British mediation. Thanks, Brits. Which leads me to my last and final country on this list of 21 native Spanish-speaking countries, Venezuela. Now, Venezuela was established as an independent country as well in 1830 and is known for some of its beautiful landscapes, like of course its famous Salto del Ángel, one of the biggest waterfalls in the world, and of course its diverse geography. Now, the word Venezuela actually comes from the word Venezuela, a smaller version of the word Venecia or Venice. In 1499, during a voyage along the Spanish-American coast led by Spanish navigator Alonso de Ojeda and accompanied by the Italian cartographer Amerigo Vespucci, do you guys remember him? Basically, when Amerigo Vespucci first saw Venezuela, he said, wow, this really reminds me of my home country, and specifically Venice, Italy. Now, this actual European naming of new places was pretty common during the time, as Europeans had pretty much nothing else to compare these places to either their home countries or religion. And after Spanish rule, let's talk about it again, Viceroyalty of Granada, La Gran Colombia, and Venezuela then became one of the first South American countries to actually seek independence. You guys remember Simón Bolívar? Yeah, that guy was from Venezuela, and he said, Arriba Latinoamérica, vamos a ser independientes. Now, Venezuela declared independence from Spain in 1811, then became, of course, its own Venezuela in 1830. Whew, that has been a very long-winded and very interesting history of all of the names of Latin America, and I want to know, what is your favorite etymology of a country that you like? Were any of these names surprising to you? Si eres latino o de alguno de estos países, ¿tú sabías estas historias de estos nombres? De verdad me quedé muy sorprendida. I ended up very surprised about a lot of these names, but overall, taking these deep dives is a really interesting way to learn about how etymology works across Latin America and every country in the world, and it shows us how we can learn so much about our own history just by looking at the name of our country. Thank you guys so much for joining me today on this fun history deep dive. I hope you have enjoyed. If you have any ideas, suggestions, or things you want to learn about next, please let me know. Also, please subscribe. I'm trying to make it this year to 100,000 subscribers on YouTube. Please support me. It means the world. Gracias por estar acá y nos vemos en el próximo videíto. Ciao!